So, welcome to Northern Powerhouses, our business success stories series of interviews. We'll discuss with local business leaders their backgrounds, their successes, their challenges, and what's really driving them forwards. And this morning, I'm delighted to have with us Michelle Hans, who's director at She Who Dares Wins. So, Michelle, thank you so much for spending some time with us. And if you'd like to introduce yourself, She Who Dares Wins, what you do, how you help people, that would be wonderful.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for inviting me, Chris. It's great
You're
to
very
talk to
welcome.
you. So my background was 17 years in the construction industry as a site engineer. So I was on every construction site in every hole, helping building things like roads and well, all sorts of wonderful things, petrol stations. Yeah, I suppose not too exciting. But I spent 17 years doing that. But just prior to that, I dipped my toe into filmmaking and acting school. So, two very different things.
Yes.
The world of engineering was amazing. It was high pace. I worked for myself, so it was really nice having a small business in a growing industry,
Yes.
and yeah, it was epic. But I think the thing that some people might resonate with is that after 17 years, two children, creeping closer to kind of my mid to late 30s, I started to go to work and really not love it. And construction is an industry where it's fast paced, it's dangerous, it's high
Yeah.
pressured. And I think ultimately I had a year of health issues, and what it kind of came down to was just burnout. And so I stripped everything back and I was like, right, okay, this perhaps doesn't serve me anymore. And in the background, there were all these things going on. Like I was making short films, I was always writing, I was always interested in creative processes. But along the journey as well, I had brought in my film work. So I was filming on site, doing YouTube videos and creating this kind of community online through YouTube, explaining what a site engineer does and just having
Yeah.
fun with it. And so, yeah, in short, there was a day in hospital where I thought I was having a heart attack, and the doctor was like, I think you need to just assess your life.
Right.
Yeah, and it was COVID, post COVID. So, two young kids, and I'd started at the Shoe Dares Wins clothing because I couldn't get out on construction site. And that was growing really nicely, like most things during COVID. And I was like, oh, maybe there's something here. So originally my whole social media thing was this is a man's world. And I was like, you know what, it can be taken slightly negative. And it was always about my experiences in construction, how that could help other women. But I changed it to Shoe Dares Wins because so many people online were resonating with experiences and stories. And I was just like, this needs to be a little bit more positive. And Shoe Dares Wins actually, a lot of people hear it and they're like, where have I heard that before? Massive love of Del Boy and Rodney
Yeah.
from
Brilliant.
Powerhouses. So it's like it's stolen.
Brilliant.
Yeah, but I started off with the clothing range, and whilst I loved it and it was a passion, I loved the designing. I wanted each t-shirt and hoodie to have like a feeling of thought behind it. It wasn't just a brand on an item of clothing. It grew very rapidly, and I was just overwhelmed with that
Yeah.
side of things. And I was like, the core of my being, I guess, is storytelling.
Yeah.
And as a business, I was like, well, where does this go? Because naturally you'd presume like marketing and social media, and it was kind of what I was good at, but I didn't necessarily want to help other businesses do that. I
Yeah.
wanted to use it as a vehicle for my own
Yes.
business. And talking, making films was something I was passionate about. And podcasting at that point, I'd already dipped my toe in with Zoom podcasts. And I I found this studio in Farsley, which you can see behind me
Brilliant.
is beautiful. Yeah. And I was like, I'm gonna go all in, get the studio, have people in on the couch, have real women's stories. And that's how kind of She Who Dares Wins community and the podcast is kind of, if we look at it as the core pillar.
Yeah.
Um, if we want to delve into business, I think what's quite nice to be open with you is that I'm just coming up to year two,
Yep. Brilliant.
so it's early stages,
Yep.
and yeah, I'm in the midst now of the podcast. As you will know, realm is so vast.
Yes.
There's so many out there. It's
Yep.
quite hard to make it a commercially viable business
Yes.
um, until you're kind of further down the line with your
Yes.
listening and stuff. So now I'm kind of in this really interesting phase of um, making it commercially viable
Yeah.
and pushing this forward. So the clothing line is sat there, but it's the secondary thing that I don't want to be known as that. And live events came out last year. I started doing live shows, which was able to bring money in. And so yeah, now I'm kind of sat in this like really interesting position of where do I go?
Yeah.
And a lot of people look to me for kind of inspiration and empowering people, and that's the kind of key theme there. Is I hope that She Who Dares Wins inspires and empowers,
Yes.
and now the focus is going to be on just not just the stories, but also like really helping people.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that's it in short or
Wow,
long.
what a varied career in life. I had a look at your website earlier, and that story of, as you say, a woman working in what because if you can't really get more male dominated than the construction industry. I would imagine. I
No,
do know a few people in it, so I'm not an expert, but it's you don't see too many women in that. So that must have been quite a challenge, I would imagine, from a relative, well, what was an early age.
yeah, totally. I mean, I was 21 when I went into it, and I think over that 17 years, I only ever worked with another woman like, twice,
Wow.
and that was a very short period of time. Like
Yeah.
the majority of time on site, I was the only woman.
Yeah.
Um, I think there were more office-based positions, definitely, and it's changing. The industry's changed a lot in the
Yes.
last 5 years. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it was. How do I liken it? I liken it to a film. Like it was a roller coaster of emotions, but it was incredible. Like I always say that. Like I really enjoyed it. There was this 10% which was super dark with the culture,
Yeah.
which you'd expect if it's heavily male dominated.
Yeah.
It was extremely funny, but I think that's where I found my passion for talking to people. So many different stories on site,
Yes.
so many different walks of life.
Yes.
And that's, I think, ultimately, on reflection, it wasn't the engineering that kept me in there. It's exciting, but it was the people.
Yeah. Yes, yes. I mean, I've never worked in the construction industry, but I am familiar with it, and I work with other people that have, and I've got friends that work in it, it's. I usually, as you say, it has a culture all of its own. Some of which isn't healthy, but a whole bunch of it
Yeah.
is a very. There's a lot of camaraderie, I think, because it's a
Yeah.
tough profession, whatever it is you're doing.
Yeah, it is, and I don't think it gets credit for that. I think,
Yeah,
yeah, and I've seen grown men cry through stresses and pressures, and I think it is one of the industries that does have, unfortunately, quite a high suicide rate.
right.
You've not only got the pressure of the job and real tight budgets, but you've also got, health and safety. Like your life is at risk every day if the right steps are not taken. So, yeah, I think there's a lot that is unappreciated.
Yes. So think about sheer days wins. And I appreciate this is probably a very broad question, so it's not. But what sort of people are you looking to attract to sheer days wins? If somebody's watching right now, who would be the perfect person to engage with you?
So I guess my kind of like key avatar is effectively who I was before I made the jump. It's women that I'm meeting that are, quite confident, or would seem quite confident. They have a passion for, meeting people, going specifically outdoors, adventurous,
Yeah,
um, but they and creative, and they want to start their own thing, and they
yeah,
perhaps feel kind of misaligned. And what I'm finding in the community is so many, like I have so many women on the show from such a broad variety of walks of life. And that was for me something that had to stay. So
yeah,
I've had, guests on that are cold water swimmers. I've had like you say, we've chatted before this marshmallowist, two women who started making marshmallows and they grew it to a business that now supplies Waitrose.
yeah,
So business owners, and like and everything in between. Like I always have the couch open to somebody that has a great story. I don't really care about social media following. I've had some big guests. I've had many people might cringe at this, but I've had Rachel Reeves on the show.
yes. I
You
feel
know,
that. Yeah,
because she was the first woman in 800 years to get that position. Like, put
yep,
aside, I know some people can't put aside political beliefs, but I did. Like, she has an incredible
yep,
story. This year I've had Lucy Spraggan, who was an X Factor finalist, who's an awesome musician, suffers with ADHD. So I think it's women that are drawn to the not normal narrative of you have to go and get a job and stick in a career for 20, 30
Yes.
years. Like things change, life changes. And I think a lot of women, especially in their 30s, late 30s, if they start a family,
Yeah.
things shift. And I would like to hope that people could come to Shoe Dares Wins with a bit of hope and get the knowledge and inspiration from my guests to spur them on to then my strap line really underneath Shoe Dares Wins is to forge your own path.
Yeah.
Because I think, again, in this convoluted world of social media, we get drawn to I should be doing this and I should be doing
Yeah.
that. And actually, I'd love for women to turn up and just be like, oh, you know what? Maybe I can be a cold water coach, or maybe I can even just give cold water swimming a try,
Yep.
or maybe I could set up a business doing marketing.
Yep.
So that's it. Yeah, in short.
Yeah, absolutely fascinating. Now, you said something halfway through that, and forgive me, I pick up language quite a lot. So you said something like, I'm paraphrasing, we like to attract confident people, and then I
Mhm.
think you said, or at least those that appear confident.
Yeah, sure. So it's an interesting theme for me at the moment. And when I talked about where the business is going right now, I um I have spent the last 10 to 15 years doing a lot of reading on personal development and psychology. And a lot of that leads back into my acting roots because you use similar tools in the acting world.
Yes, yes,
And I was always fascinated by on site, like I was like, what made I was told that I was very good with people.
yep,
Um, and it didn't really matter what problem was on site, I could overcome things, and that I was always, quite confident. And underneath, sometimes I wasn't confident. And I
yeah,
and I have people on the show that would seem to most people that they are
yep.
uber confident, but they might send me a message before they come on and say, hey, like you've got some amazing guests, like I don't really know if and I'm like, whoa, imposter syndrome is there,
Yep,
but everyone on the outside thinks you are super confident. And I think confidence an interesting one because for me it's always been about like showing up when you are the most when you are not confident
yeah,
because you have to grow.
yeah.
um so yeah, it's a very interesting one, and I've read so much about it, and it's interesting because a lot of women will come to me and say I'd want to be more confident, and it's a real hard one because I think there's a process behind it, and I don't think we ever get to uber confident.
Yeah.
Like it's just a thing that is in the distance.
Yes, I was hoping you'd say something like that because it's very. I think I ask people what the biggest challenge they faced, and I think probably at least 40% of the people I ask that question to pick imposter syndrome as being the number one.
Yeah,
I would suggest a number that are challenged by it is double that in terms of
yeah,
in their life. It's not necessarily the number one, and it's really weird, isn't it? Because that if you accept it's at least 50% or even 75-80% of the people, that means, well, I'm thinking that I'm not as good as the people around me. They're all thinking the same thing, which is if we all just be a bit more open and say, look, I'm not really that confident right now, but and it's so interesting, and
yeah. You're right, and I would say that, and I think this fascinates me is that everyone I worked with in construction, there was, it's male dominated. There's quite a lot of egos, and there was a lot of confidence. And I think the thing that I learned very early on in my 20s is that you can be uber confident and have a severe lack of ability, but actually those that are overly aware of imposter syndrome
yeah,
are over on the ability and
yeah,
lack of the confidence. And that to me fascinated me because I'd see guys, I think it's the classic of there's a percentage, and you can't quote me because this is not right, but there's a certain amount of guys will apply for a job way before they're ready for it, and women won't. They'll wait till they're more than qualified to apply for even a lesser position. And that's not the case for everyone, but was quite common in construction. So I would see at quite an early age somebody who didn't have the skills get these jobs. And actually that helped me because I kind of thought, well, screw this, like I'm going to go for it.
yeah.
And actually being in the world of men taught me a lot of things, about how to be confident, even if you don't really feel it. which is
Yeah,
crazy, but for me, it worked.
fake it till you make it. It is a very effect. It
Yeah,
is just like people are attracted to confidence, and
yeah,
so and that's the challenge, isn't it? Is even if I'm not feeling confident, I should turn up as confident,
sure.
but it's a challenge. It's really interesting you say that. So there was a couple of things that come to mind. One was, and this is sort of 30, 40 years ago, there was a study done, a little exercise done, where in the Sunday Times, this is when senior jobs were advertised in the newspapers. They posted exactly the same job 2 weekends in a row.
Right.
I think it was for a sales director, it was a very senior role, but very clear on experience, capability, um, and one at the time I think it was a £50,000 salary
Mhm.
the first week, and the following week it was a £250,000 salary, exactly the same, no difference. Guess how many people you guess what percentage of people applied for the 50,000 compared to the 250?
A lot more.
A lot more for the
80%,
50.
like,
Yeah, it was something like an 80 to 80% of the people.
wow.
It was like four times more people applied for the 50,000 because they were competent at that level. Whereas the job was very clear, it was very quite clear and concise about how much experience you need. And it was purely therefore put down to a level of self-confidence about the
Yeah.
people that did apply for that higher amount. I mean, five times more money. Um, Go figure. It's really interesting. Couple of other things, if it's I don't know if it's helpful, but it certainly come to mind is I remember I think there's a great quote from Stephen Bartlett, the Diary of a CEO, and he said something about imposter syndrome. He said, "I love imposter syndrome because it means I'm in the right room. I'm going to learn something."
Yeah, for sure.
And
Yeah.
I think that's a great way of approaching it. Is I
Yeah.
may not feel confident, but this is the right place to be.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think the awareness of it helps too. Like if
Yes,
you're like aware of it and it doesn't, I think there's a point where you can get consumed by it. And I've seen that with
yes,
people and they can't push forward. And I think that's something that you can work on and you can definitely push through. I've
yeah,
seen people do it. But yeah, I think if you're aware of it, but it's like most things in it, if you approach it with excitement and
yes,
and being curious about it, then yeah, it's
yeah,
you're going to get to a position where it works for you, like most
yes.
things.
100%. No, 100%. So whether that's number one or not, what would you say some of the biggest issues and challenges you've had to overcome over your career so far?
Um, in all honesty, like in engineering, the initial the initial challenges was getting into the industry,
Yep.
being, my CV
Yes.
was obviously female and getting in, but I just hustled. Like I come from, my dad's a business owner, and I think has set a very good standard and teachings for, just go out and get and hustle.
Yep.
Once I was in the industry, not a lot. I don't know why it was so smooth sailing, but I had my own business. I had a very good lifestyle. I charged rates that were on comparison, if not slightly more than some of the guys like at my level.
Yep.
I don't know whether that was just my youth of just like, wow, this is working, like a confidence. I think it was because I didn't know anyone in the industry, so I was just following people,
Yep.
and I think that helped. Now making the shift into my real passion
Yep.
and putting, I guess, a monetary value on that and then deciding where to go with that is hard.
Yeah.
Which I find really interesting because it's like the thing that I really now care about that is
Yep.
so important to me. I'm finding way more barriers here in,
Yep.
like how do I finance things? How do I reach out for sponsors? Are sponsors going to be interested? Because I'm quite small at the moment. What offerings do I give to my community? Because obviously a podcast is a
Yep.
free offer. So then now I'm at this point, and it's quite nice that we've had this call today because I really am at a point where I'm like, right now, I've got a community, I've got an audience.
Yep.
How do I make this commercially viable? How do I
Yes.
make this business? And yeah, there's I'm slowly working forward, but I'm not working at a speed that I would have in engineering. Like it would have been quick, and I didn't struggle with, how much to charge or what product to bring out to bring things in, or if I'm doing a live event, what cost the tickets are going to be. And also choices. There's so many choices now. What's right for my audience? And I think I'm at a position now where I am having to really just trust my gut. I'm also in a position where I'm finding it interesting in that reaching out to people for help within my community, but
Yep.
also not relying on them to come up with the answers, because I think that sometimes sends you into a bit of a spin. Um, Interesting enough, one of the things that I did think about as an offering is coaching. Um, Based off my experience of what I've been
Yes.
through. But again, there's an imposter syndrome there of like, well, I'm not a qualified coach, and what actually do I have to offer, even though I explained to you in the call what the offerings are. So yeah, I think that's the biggest challenge is and I think that's really nice is that, you know, I didn't have imposter syndrome in construction. I went, but now something new. I'm slightly older. It does exist. So yeah, I think it's that. And I think there's going to be a lot of people maybe that listen to your show that are on their own in a business.
Yep.
That's the simple case when they start. And I think it's interesting because it gives you a lot of like leverage and ability to move quickly, but also it's when you don't have a team around you to support you, it's so hard. So I think,
Yes.
yeah, my biggest things at the moment is knowing, you know, what to do and when, and then um, how to trust, you know, trust myself in
Yeah.
decisions.
I, I don't know how helpful this is, but a couple of things that might be useful. One is I always describe the difference between coaching and mentoring to the people I work with, which is mentoring is giving you the benefit of my experience. So a mentor is somebody that is ahead of me on my journey that
Sure. Yeah.
can help me with their experience. Primarily, I would suggest identify where the snakes and crocodiles might be on the journey to avoid. Um,
Yeah.
Coaching for me is adding to that or alongside that is a profession that yeah I would suggest needs education, learning,
Mm.
qualification. There is a process to coaching, which is everyone can learn. It's not like it's rocket science. But being a mentor means you can just say, look, this is my experience, this is my life. If you're interested in benefiting from it, I'm here. And we
Yeah.
don't, and it's sort of, I think it can help, you know, divide that sort of, for want of a better word, imposter syndrome and say, well, look, if my primary topic is me, what I've learned and what I know, then you're 100% authentic from day one.
Yes.
If that
I
makes
think
sense.
yeah, that is really helpful actually, because I think the one of the things on the last couple of days with social media is that I've been saying, look, I don't really want, and I don't see myself as a coach. That's not something that I do think I feel that I want.
Yes.
However, all the things that I've learned that have helped me get to this position so far in my experiences, like I want to give that to people. And it's just, it's thinking of a way to do that that is financially viable.
Yeah.
Um, and I think there are lots of different ways of doing it. And the one thing that I'm kind of moving towards now as well is a community, a paid community for those that listen to the show, because when I do live events, people just get so excited.
Yeah.
And I think we've spent the last couple of years reliant on what happened during COVID in terms of being able to work from home.
Yeah.
And that's great. But what I'm seeing now is at live events, people have been struggling because of the situation that
Yes.
we were in and has not really come out of that. And I think what's great is, again, live events and people come and they can talk to you, and they can't always have that connection, but social media also creates a connection, but there's a disconnect there too because
Yeah.
it's so noisy. So yeah, paid community is something that I'm super interested in, and then connecting people through that, because I've had so many women on the show that have so much to give back as well as
Yeah.
I do. And so I've kind of seen myself as a little bit of a leader and somebody that can orchestrate bringing people together
Brilliant.
and navigating this wide community.
Brilliant. And the other thing that came to mind, which I think you already feels like you're on with, is I always say to people there's no such thing as a marketing guru. I'm not saying there isn't people that know a lot. The
Yeah.
only marketing guru you need is the market itself. So
Yes.
asking people what would you want, what would you spend? Now,
Yes.
I think the biggest fear people believe is if you ask your customers how much they spend, the fear is they're all going to say a penny.
Yeah.
But that's not true. That's
Naturally.
just not true. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's like the you know
Yeah.
the odd one will may laugh and joke at that, but a lot of people go, yeah, well if it's 50 quid, 500 quid, 5,000 quid, yeah, I'm in. And
Yeah.
it's just gauging that because and whatever that and I would also suggest whatever they suggest, add 25% and you're probably closer to the number, or 50%.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's a good starting point of what the market would accept. So you're obviously already doing that, which I think is great. And just give sorry, it comes back to so one of my business heroes is a guy called Sir Terry Matthews, who's very not known. So he's the first. He's known to be the first Welsh billionaire.
Okay.
Made a lot of his money in microelectronics, basically the same time and the same sort of thing as Alan Sugar.
Right.
He's worth about 10 to 20 times more. Not dissing Mr. Sugar, but
Wow.
to give you a scale of this guy, because he's
Yeah,
very
yeah.
private, no social media, no nothing. And we were lucky enough to get him to speak at one of our events, our national events. And somebody asked him, he's not a speaker, so he's not somebody we were able to do that. And somebody asked a question and said, "Look, I know it's a silly question, but what's your secret to growing successful businesses?" And he said, "Look, and I know this sounds like a very basic answer, but I asked people what they wanted, and I got it for them."
Get it. Yeah. Yeah,
And it's
totally.
like, and everyone went, yeah, okay, that makes sense. We're trying to come up with these clever things, just like, what do you want? Well, if I can have this, okay, well, we'll do that. So,
Yeah.
as I say, I think that's the thing is ask the audience for want of a better phrase, and yeah, wonderful. Um, and looking back, obviously, you've had different parts of your career, your business. You obviously said it's 2 years in. It's what would you say your biggest learnings about business or about and growing a business so far, Michelle?
There's no set path.
Yes,
Like,
brilliant.
yeah, there's no set path. Like I look at how my dad grew his business. It was kind of a very traditional way. I love listening to podcasts and actually when you hear other business owners' stories, there is, I think we get sold that there's a blueprint
Yep.
for business. And there are certain elements that do fit into that. You have to set up, you have to sell, and there is a core. But I
Yeah.
think there's so much. It's like life, isn't it? And it's like people's stories. There's so much of it that is a unique journey to you. And I think once
Yeah.
you realize that, you can be a little bit freer in your approach
Yep.
and have fun with it. I think if you get too caught up in the process, you end up creating something that you didn't really intend to at the
Yeah.
start. And that for me is something that I try and think about every single day. Is this what I wanted? Does it align with what I originally set out to do? And it's okay that, podcasting is hard. There aren't that many coaches or mentors because it's quite a closed off world. People at the top don't really want to give their key away because the top
Yeah.
5%, top 1% are the ones that kind of making the big money.
Yes.
So yeah, it is, I've gone around in circles in the whole, if I went on Zoom, I could reach far more people. I've lost a lot of really great guests that I could have had on the show because I've hardline said, no, I need you in the studio.
Yeah.
And what that has, like the feedback that has been is, oh, the conversations are amazing. And the connection you can see is there. And it's because I'm looking them in the eye.
Yes.
Comes with that is the cost of a studio. Most people would be like, absolutely do not get your own studio and start a podcast from scratch. Like they would say everyone would say that. Most people start a podcast, but they've already got a business. And
Yep.
I flip that and I'm like, you know what? It might be really hard at the start, but I feel like it's setting me aside like from the
Absolutely.
masses. So my gut instinct was, yeah, it has to be like I was on a construction site, sat on a row of bricks chatting to somebody. That's
Yes.
what I know, and that's what
Get
I'm
that.
trying to create.
Yeah, I totally get that. One thing I learned many years ago was that when people tell you when people tell you can't do something, what they're telling you is what they can't do, not what you can't do.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, that's fine. Yeah, but every innovation is people doing things against the norm. Every piece of
Yes.
innovation, that's what innovation is doing things differently and see what happens. And
Yeah.
and one of the things I work with people on a lot, very busy people, it is focusing on what they really love and what they're really good at.
Yes.
There's a guy called Brian Tracy, and he suggests the most successful organizations, teams, individuals are those that spend most of their time doing the three things they really love and they're really good at.
Yeah,
Everything
and
else goes.
that's so like if I could definitely do that now. And I think the nice thing to point out is you can't do that at the start because
Yes.
if I was in a position now where I'd got a team around me, I'd have somebody that does sponsorship, reads out and connects with people. I'd have somebody, booking people and doing the admin because I have ADHD, so it's something I really struggle with. So I think that is fascinating, and half of me is like, if you learn the ropes and do the stuff that you don't want to do at the start, you quite quickly find out what you give off
Yeah.
to other people as soon as you possibly can. But I think this startup bit is where I suppose it sorts the weak from the strong, in that you've got to kind of get through this rough period of doing it by yourself before you get people in, unless you're financed and you
Yeah,
you
I
capital.
think you're right, and I'd just 95 plus percent of businesses do that, or probably 99.95% of businesses, and it's not wrong. I think the key thing, the challenge that I find too often is people get stuck in that rut. That the mindset is, what do I do next? Okay, we need to do this, right? I'll do it. And
Yeah,
so it is getting to a point as quickly as possible. So starting with the mindset of, as soon as I can, I'm going to delegate this is a real key to successful, significant growth. It's just then it's a how do I get this delegated? Because you're absolutely right. Right at the start, we've got lots of time, no money. So what are you going to do? We're going to spend our time doing stuff that we might not want to do until we can start make money from other things that we do enjoy doing. So it's
yes,
absolutely sensible, and everybody goes through it. But as I say, what I find is too many people, and I do a lot of work with people, are getting stuck at their first reaction is, right, I'll go and do that. We need to work out new social media strategy. Right, I'll do that. Or we need to work on a new product line. Right, I'll do that. Rather than who can do that for me, whether that's
yeah. Is
internal or
that?
external.
Do you find that's like a fear thing? Because um, yeah, I look at some business owners, and I mean, I even worked with people in the construction industry, and they micromanaged and they did
Yep,
jobs, and I think your value is so much higher than that. Like,
yep,
stick to what you are extremely good at and let somebody who's better than that do. And I think Richard Branson was very good at
yes,
explaining this. And he was like, I find people that are better than me
yep,
to do what I need doing.
yep,
And yeah, I would like to think that I would do that because um, I'm not somebody that's kind of caught up on control. And I think my background in engineering has helped this. It's helped seeing, like, as an engineer, you can't do the plumbing job, you can't
yep,
do the electrician job. You might be able to look at it and go, oh, that's not great, and oversee it, but you can lead. And I think that's quite interesting because one thing I learned previously is that I was a good leader, but not necessarily a good manager.
yep.
And I
Two
think
different,
people
very
don't
different
don't
things.
understand that too. Is like, somebody that leads doesn't necessarily have the ability to manage,
Yep,
and that's okay. I think it's knowing your strengths and your weaknesses. But I imagine
absolutely.
you like you say, have a lot of business owners that are doing everything, but they don't need to be, and actually
Yep.
that's just going to stunt your growth, isn't it?
Absolutely, we become the limit to growth. They become the limit to growth.
Yeah.
That's the challenge because if the success and growth of a business is dependent on how much time we have available to put in, then
Mhm.
that becomes the limit. Full stop.
Yeah.
It's like once you get past whatever the number is. I managed to get up to 100-hour weeks at one point before I fell in the heat. But once you get to the limit, whatever that limit is, depending how how much bravado you want to have, that becomes the limit, and either it breaks you or you have to totally re-engineer the business. But there's a lady called Jennifer Byrne who I heard speak some time ago, and she was the head. She was CTO at Microsoft, so board level, C levels. And one thing she said, which was fascinating, and I was in an event. There's loads of business owners there. Um, and she said in the US now, when they recruit C-suite executives, they actually they actually test their ability not to do things.
Trust. Mm.
Yeah, it's like, yeah. So the first thing is, who do I get to do this? Because
Yeah.
that's not my job. We need a new thing. Great, it's not my job.
Yeah.
And so obviously that's Microsoft's a huge organization. It still applies at a very early stage, not a startup stage. I 100% agree. But I think it's having a mindset. There's a great book actually by Tim Ferriss called The 4 Hour Work Week.
Yeah, so that was a staple when I was in engineering of reading that because I
Brilliant,
think I had that on audiobook that is probably, if it was on a tape, worn out
brilliant.
because yeah, you're right, isn't it? It's like when you actually look at the working day and productivity is, it's tight. It's like if you really are concentrated on work, the amount of hours that you can do really good work is quite short. The
Yeah.
bits in between, you're just kind of wasting time.
Yes.
And yeah, and I saw a lot of that in construction, a lot of meetings for the sake of meetings.
Yeah.
And you just think, wow, no, like this could be done and streamlined. And then people can go out for a walk at lunchtime for 40
Yeah.
minutes and feel better and mental health. And I think I don't know whether that's like a cultural thing in this country. I think the next generation are getting better
Yeah.
at
I
saying,
agree.
well, hold on a minute, this is crazy. I don't need to travel an hour into work and
Yeah.
waste that time. I can start at home. And yeah, I think it's really interesting. But yeah, massive lover of Tim Ferriss. In fact, somebody asked me the other day, they were like, we were kind of working out brand story and brand positioning for me. And it was my brother. He was like, I see you as like I should take offense to this, that it was two guys, but it was like a Michael Parkinson who interviews people,
Yep.
but then also a Tim Ferriss who takes that information and then repurposes it and gives it
Brilliant.
life for people to learn from.
Love it. Brilliant. What a great, there we are. What a great way of positioning yourself. Yeah. Yeah. I think
Yeah,
that's
they
great. I
couldn't
think,
find two women, but we'll go with the men.
yeah, no, no, yeah, sorry. Yeah. No, I get, yeah, but it's a great point. It's look, I'm just a conduit to passing on
Yeah,
really interesting information and
yeah,
information that, yes, it might be available in a book. It may or may not be yet, but the benefit of a podcast, you're asking questions that nobody else may have asked and therefore come up with some new things. But I remember somebody, the client that was considering working with me, and I introduced him to a previous client who had a lot of success, and this guy said he said something like, "Well, why do I need to employ this guy at this rate when I can read the books myself?" And Gary said to him, "Well, Chris reads them, so you don't have to."
yes. Time. Do you value your time?
Absolutely, and it was just yeah, it's and one thing I do say about my organisation is I don't. We've got thousands and thousands of systems, process structures, things that we teach people. Very few, I would suggest, are completely innovative, i.e., they're brand new ideas. There's two or three that very few other people in our sort of space use. But what we are good at is repurposing and representing tried and tested ideas in a way that people get them really quickly and easily. We use diagrammatic work rather than books or words or audio. So visual, most people have an element of visualization to them. So we visualize most of the things we teach, which you can pick up in a book and you can pick up in an audio. But if that isn't the best form of learning, then we struggle. So I think it's just how do we represent information that we've gleaned from other areas in a way that works for lots of people. So that sounds great.
And also interpretation. I think the vehicle in which you present that. If you really relate to the person that is explaining it, it's probably going to sit better with you if they've
Yes.
used it and they've found out from it. Whereas, I've read certain books that are quite a hard read
Yeah.
and they're more kind of backed on science. And then I've read other books that is the same information, but just
Yeah.
told in a different way. And I've been like, I get it now. And I
Yeah.
think that is important to remember as someone that is a vehicle for explaining stories. Like I've recently I've always been quite interested in the Stoics and like Stoicism. And actually, when you read a lot of that, Ryan Halliday is a fantastic author and he basically packages it in a way that's very
Yes.
modern. And when I read his stuff, I'm like, oh my God, like everything that we are getting taught by all these great business leaders and everyone online, these guys knew thousands of years ago.
100%.
Self-awareness, like pushing through the hard times, like it's not about you, it's about a greater like they knew it. And if anyone's got to give credit, it's back to them. Like we're
Absolutely.
we're not really, we're just repurposing and bringing it into a modern world. And I think people forget that. They think, oh God, like that's the way to do
Yeah.
things, or they're the person of authority. And they might be for you, but
Yeah.
also somebody out might be more relatable.
Absolutely, no, I completely agree. We're the same. I mean, some of the quotes, and you just go, "Oh my God, yes, that's so relevant right now." Uh,
Yeah.
it's and the thing I found is from a business perspective, how to run and grow a business. Probably most of the best business learning was generated in the sort of 1920s and 1930s. Again,
Oh,
being
interesting.
rebadged, and yeah, people like Henry Ford
Yeah.
creating production lines, Carnegie, all these guys, in terms of specifically business, learned a lot, and the information is there, and again, it's a lot of rebadging and repurposing, which is relevant because it's got to be rebadged for the modern world. So it's
Yes.
sensible, it's done, but yeah, it's you say, it's a nod and a nod to people many generations ago. So,
Yeah.
speaking of
Definitely.
learning, what do you have any favorite quotes or sayings about success or business that you find yourself using a lot?
How many quotes? I think not necessarily about business, but something that always resonates with one of my guests said, and that is comparison is the thief of joy.
Say that
Um,
again.
Comparison is the thief of joy.
Correct. Yes. Trying to think
And I
here. Yeah.
think, yeah, I think I can sort of, a lot of women that I speak to will look, there's a lot of young, I remember meeting, I was shooting a documentary last year um, on one of my guests who's a fisherwoman, and we were on the dock side, and this young lad came up to me and he was like, "Oh, what are you filming?" And I explained, and then I explained about the show and the podcast, and he was like, "I watch and I listen to Stephen on Diary of the CEO." And I was like, yeah, no, I listened to the show too. Like, I think it's great what he's built. And he was like, but I'm just not him. And like my early, like I'm started podcasting, and I'm like, oh my God, this kid's just like comparing himself to the person at the top. And like that's even stopping him doing his first ever recording of a show. And I think we all struggle with that. And I think social media, I think is great, but I think that's the real downside to social media is that you've only got to spend 5 minutes before you've even got out of bed in the morning scrolling, and the world is telling you that you're not good enough and that
Yeah.
you're not, if you compare yourself to somebody who might be 10 years down the line, but your internal brain is going, I'm not there yet, I'm not doing this.
Yeah.
And we all know that that is a narrative that we only show up showing the things that we want people to see.
Yes.
So I think that's important, and I think that's where community comes in. If you've got a community that is honest and is happy to say, like, I'm in a sticky situation right now, or like I'm struggling with this, it in turn helps people. I do try and bring that into my own business. I try and explain to people, look, I'm not this like podcaster that's earning loads of money and that's like, has figured it out. I'm still on the journey, but I'm really excited to share that with everyone.
Yeah, that no, it's really interesting actually. I was listening to somebody I was speaking to somebody that listens to these podcasts. They are a client as well, and one thing he said to me was one of what's really valuable about them is it's real people running real owner managed businesses.
Yes.
Exactly that point. We do actually do a national podcast as well where we get both business leaders, sports leaders, etc. But as you're right, it's easy to go, well, that's okay for them, or they're so far ahead of me, or I'm not them.
Yeah.
Whereas, when we're if interviewing people, every day and every week, they're either, in that startup phase, they've had challenges, they've closed two or three businesses, and it's more real for a lot more people, if that makes sense. I'm not saying
Yeah.
we don't need to have that comparison. You're absolutely correct
Yeah.
because almost all of those people I would suggest would tell you that they were in exactly the same position as
Yeah.
whoever is at a certain point in their careers, and that's and that's okay. But once you've got the disconnect, unfortunately, the learning disappears because if I don't
Yes.
believe I can do it, then I'm not really as interested in what you've achieved or what you've learned because
Yeah.
yeah. So I think it's really valuable. No, Fabrice, so what? Last bit on learning. What would you say you've learned about yourself throughout your journey so far, Michelle?
Big one for me has been the last 2 years realizing that I've got ADHD. And whilst that is a superpower, it is also
Yes.
something that can really harm if it's not acknowledged and if you don't become aware of what comes with that. So, like I have spent days where I've had a business idea and I've smashed out a website domain, um, built something, and people are like, how have you built that in a day? That's crazy. But then the next day I sit there and go, that wasn't quite right. That wasn't, but I don't know why I went for that. And on a daily basis, it's something that is a struggle. It's something that I'm working on now by doing journaling and meditation. If you'd have told me when I worked on a construction site that I'd be doing that, I'd have told you to do one, because I'm like, no, I'm like, you
Yes.
get it done, you go, you do these things. But I'm starting to learn to slow down, be more
Yes.
intentional. And also there's a lot of it's quite funny actually. This week I set myself, right, January is going to be quite slow. I'm not going to go
Yeah.
full head on. And then all these opportunities have dropped this week, which are amazing. Like an opportunity to go and film a documentary in Australia, which I'm like, whoa, and paid for as well. And
Brilliant.
it's everything that my inner child would have loved, and I'm trying not to just be like I most likely will be doing it, but there's all these things, and this is where distraction, I think, is my test right now. My test is, and it's hard to know what to go for and to go all in on it, because I think I could quite easily be a busy fool.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I get that completely. Well, I won't distract you further. So, Michelle, it's been delightful speaking to you this morning, and I could honestly go on for another couple of hours. But for anyone watching that would like to get in touch with you or She Who Dares Wins, what would be the best way of doing that?
So my email is michelle@shewhodareswins.com. I'm on social media as She Who Dares Wins, Instagram and YouTube. I recently just got the full trademark for She Who Dares Wins, so
Oh, well done, brilliant,
I'm known as that now, which is
great,
fantastic. And then the podcast is just on any platform. If you type in She Who Dares Wins, you'll see me synonymous with the hat I'm wearing, if anyone's watching this via video. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. But I'm always open to talking to people, growing the community, and
brilliant.
it is She Who Dares Wins. But there's lots of things that we do that include guys. The live events is open to men
Cool.
as well. I just don't interview men, because I have for the last 17 years
It's
unknowingly.
yeah. No, it's all good. I really am a big supporter of specifically things that support women in business, especially given that's my sort of
Yeah,
area. And I actually, somebody, but yeah, so I'm really, yeah, support everything you're doing, and I think it's wonderful. And anything we can do to help would be, please let us know. But for now, thank you so much for your time.
thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.